It's time to be woke. Take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke. Cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog. What's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the fact.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy, and it is Friday morning. Once again, you made it to another end of week, just ahead of the weekend. Congratulations. We have an awesome show for you today. We are going to be talking about something that I am always interested in because of my background as a person of maintenance, my 30-year career in an automotive plant. We are going to be talking about technology, but specifically, we are going to be talking about green technologies and what we already have and what we have in the works. And I think you'll be surprised at some of the advancements that we're seeing in technology, despite the elitist class and the oligarch classes potential to try to squash any technology that takes away from any of the large corporations' ability to make money. But that is a whole other part of that equation. But let's concentrate on things that potentially have the ability to maybe save our asses on this planet before we all burst into fire. And on that happy note, I'm going to introduce my lovely and talented co-host, Ms. Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Andy. Burst into fire. What? No, come on. It's Friday. We're going to be positive and happy today. Happy. And honestly, when we talk about climate change, I was watching an old episode where Andy, in his preamble, managed to depress himself when we were talking about climate change. And no, we're not going to go that route today, even though we're going to talk a little bit about like the poor people in Louisiana, particularly New Orleans. There are 300,000 homes still with no electricity. Then you have everybody on the East Coast, particularly in New York, who got hit with their own hurricane, storm surge. People actually died drowning in their basements because everything flooded. So we keep seeing these things over and over. And honestly, no one would judge you for being upset, for being depressed about it, because these are some really dire things. But what we've tried to do is show you what is possible for you as an individual to kind of take control over your climate future. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. So Wednesday, when I spoke about, walking through the gates of hell, trying to find a rose, I am so stoked because I have a full bouquet of roses to share with you today. So, buck up, campers. We're going to be all
plethora.
Right. A plethora.
Yes. Complete cornucopia.
Exactly. And I'm always fortunate to have Andy with me because Andy's got the practical electrical knowledge and all of that. So just real quick, let's say good morning to everybody as everybody's kind of getting their coffee or whatever else joining in. Hey, Amber, good morning. Happy post-birthday to Amber. Jay, good morning, Jay.
What?
Thank you so much for joining.
What?
Yeah, we got Jay, your brother from another mother.
Who's
Who's down in Florida? I hope you're right. Jay's in Florida, oh man, we could do weeks upon weeks of climate stuff in Florida because Food and Water Watch, if you're not already on their list, their mail list, they've got a Facebook sign up and a bunch of other things. they send you information on things that they're focused on that, mainstream media is not telling you about. And in Florida, they're having a problem with the manatees. The manatees are literally starving to death. So if you've never seen a manatee, it's a giant water cow. They're gorgeous. They're amazing creatures, and they're all over the canals and waterways. They're having a real problem with the manatees in Florida because with DeSantis and all the, free market, no regulation, the waterways are being polluted, and the food source for the manatees is dwindling. So, but
So
you get signed
really,
up for
the manatees have a problem with humanity.
Yes, they do. Leave them the hell alone. That's right. Oh, hey, Human Love Solidarity. Good morning. You joined us again. Thank you. And I want to call out this comment, starting off beautifully. Human Love Solidarity says climate disaster teaches us to establish priorities of love and cooperation between self and nature all around you. Yes, you get it. Yay. This is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Graywater says, live simply. Yep, absolutely. So this is absolutely all that we're talking about today. And honestly, I got to tell you, I'm kind of a techie geek in that I don't necessarily understand all the technology is, but I am always blown away by the brilliance of my fellow woman scientists with the stuff that they come up with. It is amazing. And so the thesis for today's show, and I want you to understand this because this is my own personal bias. Thesis for today's show is I've seen this time and time again, particularly in the legalization of marijuana in the States. What happens is the oligarchs, the donor class, keep telling us no, 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 and they put out information about how it's awful and bad and it's the gateway drug. But what's happening behind the scenes is those people are negotiating with state legislatures so that they get first crack at, no pun intended, they get first dibs on the money-making aspect of that legalization. And it happens all the time. So I suspected it was happening with renewable energy too, and I believe that I am right. And I'm going to show you why I think that is happening. So even these Republicans, centrist Democrats who are saying, no, 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 fossil fuels, and Biden himself, his administration expanding fracking, what they're doing is showing you, the general public, that it's not possible and you need to wait. You need to wait, or Andy, as you said, eat your peas. But what they're actually doing behind the scenes is funding the research that we're going to talk about today and finding a way to profit from it. So, yeah, that's kind of the negative of it, but this technology is not only on the horizon, some of it is actually happening right now. So I want to bring you some tools and resources that you can use to get in on this, not necessarily the money-making scheme, but renewable resources, solar, wind, that's free energy, right? And in a lot of cases, there are 34 states that will allow you to sell back the energy you generate to the state and earn some money from it too. So we're going to talk about all of that. So
Sounds exciting.
Who else joined us? Yeah. I love it when you do the radio voice. That's hilarious. Hey, we got Narissa back. Hey, Narissa. Good morning. And let's see, Robin's in North Carolina. Good morning, Robin. She's joining us bright and early. So Eric, thank you. Eric, he says, I have the unfortunate fate of living in Florida. You know what, Eric? Check with me soon because I'm getting ready to make room for refugees here in New Mexico, and I'll tell you why as we get through. So yeah, let's get started. Andy, before I continue talking without breathing, is there anything that you would like to talk about?
No, I think we should get right into it, with the one exception that I just wanted to send condolences to Eric for, his unfortunate fate of living in Florida, where they at least are unencumbered by things like democracy.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay, so I was reading this morning, and I don't know how many people saw this, aside from Biden forgetting what year it is. He's picking a fight with Ron DeSantis, and it's kind of funny, and I'm feeling positive about it in a way, because for those of you who don't know what's been going on in Florida, and you've been under a rock for the last 10 years, Florida Republicans and Florida Democrats have been whittling away at union leverage. In particular, in the teachers union, it is the most impotent teachers union in the entire continental United States. I have friends who are teachers in Florida, and they tell me all the time that their union has no teeth because of regulation and things that have been peeled away. So here's what happened. Biden and DeSantis have gotten into it over the mask mandate for schools. And teachers who are asking to wear masks, or they themselves are wearing masks, are being censured, fired, all of these sorts of things. So, oh, Eric is a teacher as well. Good God, Eric. Oh,
we're
well,
not
thank
picking
for
on
your
you, Eric.
sacrifice.
We're not picking on you. I swear.
No, you have my empathy. But so what Biden has said is, if you're a teacher and you've been fired, suspended, or you've lost any type of income because of the mask mandate, the prohibition on the mask mandate, he is pledging to compensate you up to 100% of your salary. So no word on how that's actually going to work, or what that policy looks like, or Eric, how you apply. But I'm going to keep an eye on that, and Eric, I'll watch it for you. If you have any information, drop it in the chat so we can help all of our teachers. It's doctors, nurses, and teachers. Like it takes 12 years to make a good one. You guys,
Absolutely.
I think you're more important than I am. So absolutely.
That's right. So
Okay.
I just wanted
All
to,
right.
before we get into this, Carrie, I just wanted to a quick little sidebar as a introduction / segue into our presentation. President Biden decided to create a position called the Special Presidential Envoy to the Climate. And he filled that position with a Republican, John Kerry, right? The party of climate deniers. Woohoo! And Kerry's official stance on the climate is, we are going to cut emissions in half by 2035 based on technology that doesn't exist.
Oh my God. Yay! So that's a callback to the show that was at Wednesday, or it had to be Wednesday. We were talking about the fifth best. You send the fifth best person to Washington because they're idiots. So I guarantee you, if you're watching the show and you pay attention, you are going to know more than most people in Congress. I think there are one or two that I would kind of set them aside, but so that means 537 people in Congress making decisions about our lives. You'll know more than they will. So I get it. And Justine, she says, Pam. Yeah, okay. And Justine, I'm totally with you, because today when we finish this program, I am going to request my permit from the state of New Mexico to grow hemp in our small eco village farm. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It's also a crop, a good feed crop. It's a it's soil reclaim crop. So out in the desert where nothing has ever been planted here farm wise, if I grow hemp, it replenishes nutrients into the soil. Anyway, I can go on and on about how awesome hemp is, but yeah, I'm right there with you. So yeah, hey Wesley, good morning. You're a little late, but we waited for you. So pay attention, Wesley.
We did bake a cake.
right, exactly. So all right, let's get started. So
Right.
the Yeah. So, let me think here. Where's a good place to start? Because there's so okay. So the first one I'm going to talk about is I dropped this link in the chat. I'll try to do it again so you can follow along. But I thought it was sad, but kind of funny too. The headline was from the New York Times: "The U.S. is not ready for climate reality." No shit, right? So part of this goes back to the vaccine argument and everything else. When you have people that you trust, that you believe have your best interests at heart, saying that all of that the sky is not blue, that the sun doesn't rise, that the moon doesn't circle the earth. When you have them saying this out there and doing it straight faced with seriousness over and over and over, it's no wonder people don't believe the sky is blue, right? Even though they can look up and see it. Well, same thing happened with climate change, right? So how much you remember that guy who was sitting in the house with a snowball say climate change, and we had to change it from you the heating aspect of it because they were getting confused about snow and so here's the reality, and we're seeing this, and I opened the show with this about New Orleans. So it was Texas with their electrical grid. Now it's New Orleans with their electrical grid, and it's New York with their electrical grid. And all of these things are suffering because we have not effectively addressed it. And we have known for almost 100 years. No, more than 100 years. 1912 was when this has first come about. So this has never been a secret. But when you live in a capitalist society and you have literal addicts running the show, they're addicted to greed and all of their power and influence. Of course, we're going to end up in this place, and it's you and I that suffer. So this particular article, if you get a chance to read it, it is a little bit of a paywall. New York Times, which I hate. I hate that any news source has a paywall. Just do your advertising, do your job. But anyway, it said the preamble to this article was talking about the relentless summer of climate disasters, from fires and heat all the way to the Hurricane Ida and all of these recent events. All of this is part of climate. The change in our climate, and Andy, you spoke about the jet stream, and all of these things were predictable and knowable. But here in the US in particular, we're not taking it seriously. And I gotta say, if you're one of the blue MAGA folks, the vote blue no matter who, and you still are talking about the Paris Agreement, then you are so far behind, because even the Paris Agreement and the Paris Accords were 10 years behind what climate scientists were saying the day that it was signed. So all of that is kind of a bait and switch. So we really need to get our shit together. Absolutely. So, yeah, Danny. I also hate when they ask you to turn off your ad blocker. Right. Right. Just do your advertising like normal. Right. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So this is where we're at, where we don't get it. And honestly, and I'm gonna say this gently to our audience, who is absolutely the smartest group anywhere. Even you guys don't get it. And I have to admit, I didn't get it either until was put in this situation that I'm in now, and I'll explain to you why. So if you are a U.S. consumer of electricity, that particularly in the suburbs, your household right now today is using about 30 kilowatts of energy per day. That's a lot. A lot. But did you know that you take for granted when you flip on a light switch or when you pick up your cell phone or all these things, that these things are just going to work? So did I, until I had to get my electricity on my own. And then I had to start going into, well, how do I do it more efficiently? How do I conserve? Whatever. So take your 30 kilowatts and compare it to my 3. That's what I use every day, 3 kilowatts. How did I do that? Well, it was because I had to start budgeting, right? I can't run a toaster and the coffee pot at the same time, but do you? I guarantee you didn't think twice about it. So this is what we're talking about, where the U.S. is not ready. Let's set aside Congress and all of their bullshit. Let's just you and I go through some of these things that you can do right now. And this is go out to your meter, look at it. What are you using? The refrigerator that you have, the microwave. Microwave is horrible. Like we unplugged our microwave. We don't use it at all. It is just an energy suck. This is part of how I got down to 3 to 4 kilowatts per day. And I got to tell you, running off of 4 solar panels. So Andy, this is where your explanation for the battery is going to come in, but I am having to learn about renewable energy for my household. And when I drive around the streets and you drive around the streets, you'll see people with like 10, 20, 30 panels on their houses. I have four. And I am able to generate between 3 and 4 kilowatts per day. And that's plenty for me to use during the day while the sun is out. But at night is where I have a problem. And this is where the storage and batteries come in. So before we get into that discussion about batteries, because it's relevant for this technology we want to talk about, Andy, you want to go through a quick explanation to bring us all up to speed? Please pay attention, because again, if you listen to Andy, you're going to know more than most people in Congress, and I need you to know this. So go ahead, Andy.
That's if you set that was set up as kind of a compliment, but really it's not. Before I get started on that, I just wanted to say quickly, just because this kind of tags on to what you were just saying, Carrie, about power and usage and all that. There's a program that's set up in Ontario, where I live, in Canada, that there are 3 times during the day, which are normal usage, off time usage, and peak usage, I believe is what they're called. Anyways, the difference is if you're using electricity during these different times, depends on what you get charged for kilowatt hour, right? Like, so the whole idea was when business is running, when corporations are running, and there's a large demand, especially in the summer, where people running their air conditioning is the hottest part of the day, which is during the day. If you use electricity at these times, then you get charged the full amount, right? The full cost per kilowatt hour. If you can wait till a certain time, say between 4 in the afternoon and 7 in the afternoon, then it's 2/3 the cost, because you're getting into the cooler part of the day and businesses are shutting down, and so is there's not demand for electricity. If you can wait till 7 o'clock in the evening, or between 7 o'clock in the evening and 7 in the morning, you're actually getting charged 1/3 of what the normal cost is. So those are off-peak hours. So anything, like Carrie was saying, that draws a lot of power, like a clothes dryer or washing machine, or any appliance that runs on electricity or a microwave, and you use that in those off-peak hours. You could actually, so if you do your laundry in the evening, right, or you put a dishwasher on just before you go to bed, then you're only getting charged a certain amount in off-peak times, right? So I'm not sure if that is a thing in the US, but I just thought I'd mention that. That's what we have set up here in Ontario, and it's very good. It's a cost saving for the consumer, and it's also not overtaxing on the system when we are at peak hours, when businesses are running and air conditionings are running at full capacity. Anyways, regardless of that point, batteries, right? And we're talking about why batteries are important, and any of the new geotechnologies that we're talking about, right? They all rely on batteries, because you have to have a place to store the energy, right? For wind, for solar, for hydrogen, everything, wave technology, there has to be battery backup in order to store that energy, so that it can be used when the sun goes down or the wind dies down or what have you, right? So basically, the way a battery works is, you think in terms of electricity. Electricity is basically just the sharing of electrons between atoms, right? Any metal that has loosely held electrons in its outer valence or outer shell, right? Remember our science, electrons go around on the atom on the outside. And when you have in the last shell, the outside electrons are just loosely held to that atom, then they can be easily transferred from one atom to the next, right? So when we think of copper, there's the outer valence, the electrons are very loosely held. And so if you can set up a potential from one end of the circuit to the other end between positive and negative, you can allow those electrons to flow from one side to another because they're constantly being drawn from one side to the other. That's electron flow, and that's basically how energy works. When we talk about batteries, what we've got is the negative and the positive pole, right? And we have one metal, which is usually like zinc, and then you have copper, which is the other metal. And they are polarity-wise diametrically opposed. So when you hook say a light bulb onto a battery, you're completing that circuit and you're drawing electrons through that circuit from one side to the other. And batteries will be used up when there's no more electrons to be shared from the negative side of that battery. And your batteries, once they're dead, once they've died, once they've been used up, they're pretty much done. At that point, then we invented rechargeable batteries, right? Which basically means that you take an AC circuit or an electrical circuit that you plug into your house, you reverse the direction of the electrons. You're basically replenishing the side where the electrons came from, right? Which recharges that battery. And then you can use the battery again and the electrons go back and they do their thing again until eventually they die and then they can recharge, right? The first batteries that we had were very, inefficient in that way. They didn't have a lot of charge capacity. They didn't have too many cycles that you could recharge them before they were basically used up, right? Because each time you recharge a battery, you get little defects in the metal on the side that gets recharged, and eventually it can no longer have a charge and it's died. The technology has changed to a point now that the batteries that we're using are way more efficient now than they were when they first came out, right? They're much smaller, they're much more powerful, they hold a bigger charge, and they last a lot longer, right? The hope is that eventually the batteries of the future that we will be inventing will be capable of being recharged over and over and over again 100,000 times, right? And that seems viable compared to how the technology has advanced since the very first batteries that we invented and the first rechargeable batteries that we invented, right? This is a very important thing to understand because currently that's the only way that we have to store the power from any of the renewable sources that we're using and we're talking about. And that's basically batteries 101.
Thank you, Andy. So I am fortunate not only to work with Andy, who is a professional electrician. I'm also married to an electrical engineer at WE. But here's the funny thing. As we have gone through sustainable, transitioning from standard electric over to solar, he knows nothing. So we're learning it together. And this is where your high school science is really going to come in. So Andy, I appreciate that explanation. And Danny, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, whenever you donate directly to us through super chat, this goes back to Fred Hampton Leftists, and we support Rome's Tour for the Poor, buy Andy coffee, that sort of thing. So that's where that money goes. But thank you, Danny. I really appreciate that. Danny asked this question: what are your thoughts on power companies remotely adjusting the thermostats of residents to increase energy efficiency? Do you think it's more about corporate profits for the energy providers. Danny, I'm going to say one word: Enron. Do you guys remember Enron? Do you remember why the CEO, Ken Lay, went to jail? Because they were manipulating prices for energy delivery in California remotely. So what's the difference between remotely adjusting thermostats for residents that way, right? Even if you have a clause in your service agreement, because we need to have Sherry Wise on here, antitrust laws are not being enforced. How many energy providers do you actually have to choose from? Probably only one, even if you have another company who's repurchasing and selling the energy, it's coming from one company. So even if your service clause allows them to do it, I think there's a lawsuit there because that, yeah, no, that should never be part of it. My personal thing is, yeah, it's about profits, not necessarily about, because they're actually coming into your home through the service they provide, right? So if you have internet, you can block at the point of service on your router so that your provider cannot see where you're going. You have that ability, but through your thermostat, you don't have that ability, right? There is no technology that allows you to block their entrance into your private residence. So my personal feeling on that is class action lawsuit, absolutely. And it's all about profits at that point, because we know that California has brownouts and other things that they have to announce by law that these things are coming. But if they're not doing that with your thermostat and everything else, yeah, that's some sketchy shit. So that's how I feel about it. But thank you. That was a really good question.
Ask Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah, exactly. And then Monique, I love that Monique has joined us, Monique from London, because we were talking about water heaters in the chat. And most people in Europe and in other parts of the world, not in the US, in the US, we have those big tank water heaters that are super inefficient and they get corrosion and all sorts of other things. In other parts of the world, they have a point of use water heater. And this is what we are actually investing in for our building projects. So it's a little heater that sits like near your shower or in the kitchen under the sink. So you are only heating the water that you need right then. And I'm doing it right now in my trailer. And so there was someone else who mentioned that they were in a trailer park. That's how it works in a trailer too. It's a point of use. So when you're going to do dishes or something like that, you have to turn on that water heater, heat the water. It's like 4 or 5 gallons, I think -6. And that's all I'm using. So it's not running constantly throughout the day. It's just way more efficient. This is part of the stuff that we're talking about. So in the US right now, big box stores are selling point of use water heaters. How many of you knew about these things? They're there. And part of the federal green initiative is replacing your outdated systems with some of these other ones. So I do have a link here that you can go to your state and either get help with purchasing solar panels, purchasing wind generating opportunities. They're not just windmills. It's a bunch of different things. And then, yeah, replacing your water heater, your old outdated boiler water heater with something like a point of use. So, Narissa, we are so similar. Yeah, girl. Yeah. That's funny.
Well,
Oh,
that's
hey,
actually, sorry for interrupting, Carrie, but I just wanted to mention,
yeah.
and I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who is an avid camper like I am, that the newest technology, and we, go back and think about, the technology of refrigeration and how that works, right? And really the only innovations that we've seen is basically taking the freezer and putting it on the bottom, right, for years. And that's basically all we've seen. Well, there's new refrigeration technology that's coming out, especially in when we look terms of trailers and RVs, right, because of the limited space inside those, right? And so this new technology, and please don't ask me, I don't know what it is. I know it's not the old standard Freon compressor style refrigerators that because of the machinery involved in that process, uses up a third of the space of your refrigerator, so you can't get as much food into it, right? These new refrigerators have quite a bit less technology in terms of size, therefore more space within the refrigerator, and so these refrigerators can be smaller and they take up less room, and they're way more efficient than the current technology, right? So these are innovations that are coming out that haven't changed for decades and decades, right? I have a refrigerator in my laundry room, which is basically the quote unquote beer fridge, right? I bought it used in 1987. It still works. It still works. So it's impossible for me to, as a maintenance minded person, to throw it out, but it still runs on the same technology in the kitchen, in the newer fridge in the kitchen that I have up there, right? It hasn't changed.
Right. So Danny said it's the Peltier cooling, the Peltier effect. Hey, Danny, if you happen to have a link handy that you could drop in the chat so that we can read a little bit more about this. But Andy, get rid of your beer fridge. It is inefficient. Stop. Stop. You're drawing too much power.
But it's my beer.
No. And you have winter coming.
That would be
outside.
That would be cruel to my beer. You can't put your beer outside in the winter. It freezes.
Not.
This isn't Vancouver.
Put in a cooler. Okay. All right. We will talk about this after the show.
All right. Okay. We're getting off topic. I apologize. That's my fault. Okay.
Okay. So, Narissa, but I need my beer. Thank you, Narissa, for the backup.
That's right.
Okay.
I've fallen and I can't reach my beer.
All right. I want to talk about something that happened this week that is huge, and it's just the beginning. So getting back to where they're telling us, oh my God, fossil fuels, we can't change. But on the back end, we're actually funding a lot of this stuff through our universities. Danny says beer lives matter. Come on, guys, you're going off the rails. Come back. So what is happening right now is some amazing stuff. And I wanted to cover this because, as you know, I forget who it was. Was it the house slaves, who is our resident Eeyore, says batteries are not going to save us. Oh, but wait till you hear this stuff. Wait till you hear it, because it is amazing. So the first story that I want to talk about, and if you look this up, I found this on The Guardian, which is one of my favorite U.S. papers aside from Al Jazeera, but they were talking about what's going on in Iceland. So there's this, I do have some criticisms over the way this journalist posed this particular piece, but this is the Orca plant, ORCA, which actually means energy. So the Orca plant went online. It is already in operation. And what this thing actually does, and I'm going to explain the science terribly, but I did post a link so you can go and read about it. It's that it literally sucks carbon dioxide out of the air and turns it into rock, mineralizes it. So think of just this giant air sweeper, and they take the carbon, heat it up so that it becomes a little more stable. They can pull it out of the air, release the air back all clean-ish, and then they take a little bit of water and this carbon and inject it into really, really strong stone. So this is not like fracking. They have picked this location for the plant particularly because it is sitting on top of basalt rock, BASALT, basalt rock. That is like earth core level rock.
That's
so
igneous
they're putting
rock.
it into that so that it becomes. Oh, Andy, look at you! Somebody got an A in science. Good job.
I'm smarter than a fifth grader.
Right. Good job. So that is what they're doing with this. Now it sounds kind of wonky, and I want you to kind of picture this. This is one plant, and through the year where this little plant is operating, it's going to remove carbon equivalent to about, they said, 870 U.S. cars, not European or whatever, U.S. cars. So that's a lot. That's a lot. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself because the best way to capture carbon is actually plant trees. But if you've got to have, the profit margin and something else to help you, here you go. Here's a plant that went online. And I really like this technology because for our addicted capitalists, the ones that we can't do the tough love with, and they're always going to be addicted to profit, here's something that is actually working, right? So here's my criticism of this particular article. Bloomberg says that it was so expensive to put this plant together at $10 and $15 million. Come on now.
How much did Michael spend on his 3-week elector campaign?
You get about 100 of these plants. So, so this is actually online in Iceland right now. It's working. It's working. So kudos to Iceland for showing the way. Oh, but wait, this is just one of the things that we're doing.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Thank you, Harry. There are a ton of different countries that have now solar farms, or I'm sorry, wind farms off their shores right now. Huge wind farms where they're generating electricity and they're doing so sustainably. Norway's one of them. Scotland has been doing it forever. Because Scotland, if you know your geography, Monique, help us with this. Scotland it's part of the UK. It sits right at the forefront of the Atlantic. So what do they have a ton of? Wind. Now,
and haggis.
Scotland is interesting. I love haggis. I just ordered haggis actually. But the other thing that Scotland has, oh, by the way, it is one of the largest oil reserves on the planet, but yet they're going with wind. Isn't that funny? Right? So all of these things are happening right now today, as well as ocean scrubbers and things like that. But for our resident Eeyore, I want to get into the battery discussion because this is why Andy went with the explanation, so you would understand it. And we did start with, our regular Duracell batteries and you just pitch them, whatever. And then we went to rechargeable. But now here's what they're doing. And this is amazing. So Andy, you want to put up that graphic for me just so we can follow along? So I have the big three that I wanted to talk about today. So, so again, behind the scenes, the U.S. Department of Energy is working with some private companies and universities, providing some funding on the back end while they're telling us, nah, fossil fuels fracking, right? So here's what's actually happening. And I posted a link to this article from this gentleman, Kerry Rippey, R-I-P-P-Y, dated September 8th, where he is actually blowing the whistle here on some of these really cool technologies, and I love it. So when we were talking about batteries and how batteries work, and even though battery won't save us, my is on batteries right now. And what I have found when I went over to solar exclusively, nobody knows how this stuff works. When you talk to the salespeople and you talk to the techs, and nobody has a clue. So we're all learning it together, and that's kind of frustrating for me. But again, I am generating 3 to 4 kilowatts per day on just 4 solar panels. And because I'm broke like most of you, I bought 1 solar panel a month a while ago because I knew this was coming, and they run about anywhere from $90 to $120. So I just put some money away. So now I have 4 generating 3 to 4 kilowatts per day. And I got to tell you, I'm in New Mexico, but it's the same sun in Massachusetts and Oregon and Florida. It's the same sun. You guys have it. You have it. So you too would probably only need 3 or 4 panels to tie into your electrical grid and start making money by selling that energy back. Whereas I'm not tied into anything. I am completely off grid. Not by choice, just happened. So the challenge for us is I can generate this kind of power, and I'm great during the day, but as soon as the sun goes down, what do? This is where the batteries came in. And so I right now had to invest hella cash. They're not cheap. I am right now on the lithium ion batteries, and they're pretty good at storing things. So I have a comparison of regular car batteries on one system, and then these lithium ion batteries on another system. And it's a marginal difference, marginal at best. So I can generate all this power during the day and not use a lot of it, but it's where I store it that's important. So for Eeyore, when you say batteries won't save us, I gotta tell you, I rely on batteries every single day. So I'm watching this stuff really closely. And one of the things that they're working on is a new battery type. And I've seen rumblings in the solar community where they're actually getting prototypes together. So they can store upwards of 100 gigawatts. So you take my kilowatts by a magnitude of 10, 100 gigawatts worth of these batteries will be installed by 2050. I predict that's going to be way sooner because the demand is so high, particularly in off-grid sustainability, and states are revamping their own electrical grid using solar and these batteries. So I predict that 2050 is not accurate. You're going to start seeing them sooner. So what they said in this particular article was that's 50 times generating capacity of the Hoover Dam, which if you watched our previous shows, the Hoover Dam was in trouble because of water, and water was being sequestered and lost because of a mega drought at the Colorado River. But we're getting seventh and eighth grade science in with geography and all of this stuff in one conversation. Do you know where the Hoover Dam is? Do you know where the Colorado River is? It's California, Utah. I get the tail end of it. So I thought that that was cool because if you thought that if you're just using Duracell batteries or all these other things, you may not be aware of what is coming and what is currently available in the battery market, right? So think about your cell phones. For those of you who have the new iPhone, your iPhone has a battery in it that is light years ahead of the one from 4 generations ago.
Just quickly, Carrie,
see.
Monique from in London asked, "In what country has a lot of lithium?"
Okay, so we're getting to the lithium and the cobalt because yeah, that was my concern too. A lot of these batteries are using lithium and cobalt. Cobalt is already a scarce resource, and lithium comes primarily 70% from the Congo. And let's all just use our imaginations. The Congo. What are capitalists doing to workers who are mining the resources in the Congo? It's shitty. It's really shitty. So in this particular article, they go on to talk about a renewable source of lithium using salt, sodium. And
Yes.
This is the big piece that I wanted to talk about. Sodium, that is so prevalent everywhere. So, all right, so let's step back. We have climate change. We have rising sea levels. We have a lack of drinkable water. And now we need storage with sodium. What could, oh, yes, desalination plants on the coast, removing the salt from the water, making it drinkable for regular people, not Nestle, hopefully, regular people, and taking that salt and using it as a replacement for traditional lithium in these batteries.
And and a quick side note, Carrie, if you're wondering, well, does that technology exist in?
Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting question, and all you have to do is look to some Caribbean countries, specifically Curacao and Aruba, that are basically just islands of rock. They have no source drinking water of their own. So all of the drinking water provided on those 2 islands comes from desalination plants. And they've been doing that for a while.
Remember, how many times have we heard that, oh, it's too expensive to take the salt out of seawater? Bullshit. Bullshit, it's not. It's not. As the technology goes forward, it becomes not only more reasonable and efficient, but necessary, right? So, Andy, you've made the point. If all of your consumers and your buyers and clients are dead, how much profit can you make, right?
Well,
So,
exactly. And people ask, well, where do we get all this salt? Well, let me see. Is there
right.
an
Yeah, salt
a
mines and
planet where 70% of the planet is covered in water, salinated water? I think I remember, Carrie, seeing the actual estimated amount of salt in all the oceans of the world, and it was some ungodly number that was just incredible. It was almost as big as the number of bathrooms in Jeff Bezos's house.
almost. Uh, well, for those who live in Wisconsin or around the Great Lakes area, Chicago, Wisconsin, all of this, you have one of the largest salt mines in the world underground. Why? Because that was once covered with salt water and all the glaciers receded and things. There's salt everywhere. So here's another thing, and shout out to New Mexico for this one. This is at Sandia Labs. This is just down the street from me. These people are so smart, so smart. So what they started doing is, okay, so what do we have in abundance in New Mexico? Wind and solar. Oh, hey, let's use
And
that. So
tamales.
what they started to do was capture. Oh, don't get me started on the tamales. Oh my God, Abuela, I love you. The tamales. Okay, so for the concentrated solar power plants, what they're doing is using mirrors. Now I know that some of our people are going to get upset about the birds. No, the birds know. I'm telling you, the birds know. I've seen it. They fly around this shit. So what happens is they're using mirrors, just like the kid with the magnifying glass roasting, whatever in the sunlight, and they're concentrating all of that to create heat. So what do they do with this heat? They take salt and they melt it. And then that molten salt is used to drive an electric generator, much the same way we had been using coal or nuclear fusion power to heat steam and drive the generator. Instead, they're using salt. Now, they didn't stop there, because what else does New Mexico have a lot of? And oh, by the way, is everywhere? Sand. They're like, okay, salt is a little expensive and it's a little efficient to heat. It has a higher melting point than sand. So let's just use sand. So they're doing the same thing with sand, more efficiently, faster, and at higher temperatures. So they're literally taking sunlight, heating up sand to melt it to run a generator. Is that sustainable? Hell yes, it's sustainable. And not just in New Mexico, anywhere can do this. So we don't necessarily need nuclear power. We don't need coal. We don't need fossil fuels. All you need is the sun and some sand. And you can power neighborhoods far reaching with just this particular process. I love this solution, and it's already being used in place already. So if you want to check out more, that's at Sandia Labs in New Mexico. And it's, so for non-solar generation, if you have a community where you can't get enough sun, high trees, or whatever it is, this is a solution that could be used. So instead of building more traditional nuclear plants, you're building these kind of plants. How cool is that? And it's a lot cheaper to build these plants, right? So, all right. Then the other thing is the batteries. The batteries. So the big objector we always have, particularly from our neighbors on the right, is, well, how are you gonna power a truck? How are you gonna power an airplane? They're already working on that. So this one I thought was really cool. This gets back to your 7th, 8th grade science class. They're creating hydrogen from splitting water molecules. So remember we just talked about desalination plants, where you take the salt out of the water and now you have the water. Okay, so you take some of this water now and you split the molecule and you have just made hydrogen. Safe, effective, and not nearly as flammable as traditional hydrogen creation processes. And oh, by the way, they're also using ammonia. So hydrogen and ammonia itself have more energy per pound. This goes back to the E equals MC squared. Remember that one? More energy per pound than batteries. So they can work where batteries don't. So Eeyore, here's the solution for non-battery applications. So this is for shipping heavy loads by train, by boat. U.S. Navy alone uses like, what is it, 90% of our fossil fuels just running back and forth protecting the oil passageways. So imagine if our fleet ran off of hydrogen and ammonia created through the water that they're actually floating on. This is what they're doing. And oh, by the way, Elon can use it for rocket fuel. You do not need fossil fuels. So whenever I talk to people who are still of a mind that, oh, we can't get off fossil fuels, you have to remind them of our own history. Back at the turn of the century in 1912, we moved away from kerosene to these fossil fuels. We did it once before. So do you mean to tell me that a nation like ours that can create an RC vehicle, drop it on another planet and land it on a dime would not do this stuff? Well, here's the answer. We're already doing it. We're doing it, and the stuff is in place right now. So what can you do? I dropped a link in there, 2 different links, where 34 states in the United States right now have buyback programs or grants. If you want to get involved with wind or solar and put it in your residence, you can get help from your state to do that. If your state is not one of those, or if this plan doesn't exactly affect you, or you're not really feeling keen on it, you can take all the information that we covered here and sit down with your state or congressional representative and say, hey, are you aware of this stuff? I guarantee you they may have been briefed on it a little bit, but they're not really paying attention. And by you going to them and saying, hey, I know this exists, and I know that my family is going to die without this stuff. I need you to take this front and center. I need this to be part of your platform. You are doing a huge amount. And I cannot tell you that face-to-face conversation that you have with them, your state and congressional representative, that narrows the gap between the donor class and you. And that is absolutely your right to make that phone call. Right? So you can call and work with these people and be the champion of it. And if you don't believe me, we did an interview with a lovely woman, Jo Sheree, who is an advocate for healthcare in Kansas. And she kept up with it. And what she did was made appointments and had conversations with her state rep. She has literally changed the face of healthcare in Kansas for disadvantaged and disabled people just by being an advocate and making phone calls. It absolutely works. So if you checked out of the electoral process, I'm asking you, for the sake of my family, for the sake of your family, maybe you reconsider that just a little bit. Because here's the technology, here are the things that we should be invested in, here are the things that are already working right now today. Not 2050, not 2060, not even 2030, right now. These are things that are happening. And I can tell you why mainstream media isn't, well, I can't. Mainstream media is purposely not talking about these sort of things because of their donors. So, yeah, to me, this is so exciting. Am I off the rails on this? Because I think that this is really huge, really huge.
No, it's absolutely huge, and it's has the potential for, to save our ability to live here on this planet, right? Just ask people in Portland, Oregon right now how their summer was.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so I was responding to optimism. Optimism, I think you're the person who lives here in New Mexico. One of the initiatives that I'm working on with this Eco Village Sustainable Farming, whatever, is on summitleon.com. So Andy and I are one part of it, working with others to educate, as we're doing right here. And then the other part is other sustainable community building initiatives through this other project. So I put that link in there. If you want to follow along and get involved, obviously we're not the first effort. We did a show on eco villages all across the United States. So these efforts are happening everywhere, everywhere. So yeah, uh, end user punishing taxes is so neoliberal. A dingo in my baby. What are we talking about? Biden, a new infrastructure bill wants to put all new cars on Internet of Things 5G. Highways get funding off gas tax. With electric vehicles, they lose that revenue. Want to track and tax you. Okay, so Andy, I'm tossing this one to you. What is the purpose of taxes?
Well, the taxes are basically really, well, there's a number of reasons. Taxes, you tax the citizen of your country to drive demand in the currency, and I'm not going to get into the major gist of that part because we're almost at the end of the show. But I'll tell you what taxes aren't for. Taxes aren't for funding federal spending. Right? Government is the currency issuer. They can create as much currency simply by keystroking computers into existence. So when you're talking about taxes that are paying for things, you can talk about that on the state level. But when we understand how the taxes work on the federal level, basically taxes are in place to either heat up or cool down the economy as a hedge against inflation, if that is necessary, or to punish bad actors in society for doing things that we don't want them to do, right? For example, the fossil fuel industry, like actually taxing them out of existence, right? Making the fossil fuel industry not want to be in the fossil fuel business anymore, right? By taking away their profit margin and taking away their ability to make money in a capitalist society, right? And then giving tax breaks to people that will, invest in new green technologies and making those the preferred way to generate power in the world. So how was that? Was that pretty good?
Yeah, that was good. And hot damn, we have Sherry Weiss popping in here. She says taxes and subsidies incentivize behavior, as reiterating her point. And then she brings up something really cool. She says our house in New Mexico faces south with brick floors, and we don't have to heat it all during the day during the winter. Passive solar. Yes, Sherry, that's exactly how we're building right here in ours. Doorway facing south, very little on the north. We're using sustainable brick, whether you call it Adobe, compressed earth block, all of those things. Yes, and we did an entire series on that. So thank you, Sherry. And she says taxes can also internalize costs. Sherry, you got to come back on. We've got to have that conversation. And Adingo says, yes, he's an MMTer. So thank you. For the rest of you who don't know, learn MMT so we can get rid of this neoliberal bullshit. So, yeah. So this was the gist of our program this morning. That everybody take a little bit of this and maybe just breathe. Just breathe. We're gonna get through this. The technology is coming. We're working together. Just there's stuff out there, and part of how we make this happen faster and elevate it is you sharing the information with people that you know, and of course get on the phone with your state representative and say, hey, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we investing in it? I mentioned Illinois, who is currently working with private enterprise, local residents, and communities to replace their entire grid with solar community farms, right? So it's happening all over the place. And I am so privileged and so happy to have brought just some of this to you so that for your Friday, you can exhale just a little bit. We're going to get through this. It's just a matter of who knows. And James Ruth says, smash that like button. So yes, please, if you haven't already subscribed, we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers on the Fred Hampton Left YouTube channel. We appreciate all of your support for those of you tuning in. Love the conversation that happens in the chat because you guys are so smart and you're sharing this information and everything else. Marissa says pics to prove, Carrie. Andy said we might get pictures of your house. Girl, my house is a field right now, and I got a whole rant on the New Mexico manana. But we did a story where I showed you the bricks, the really big bricks that are making. So what I'm going to do when I leave here is go make more bricks. So
I just
yeah,
put up a
so-
picture of the bricks.
Did you?
Yes.
There you go. That's my house. It's an IKEA house.
Yes, it's
Some assembly
unassembled.
required. So yeah.
Some assembly required.
Right. I'm currently working to get a floor poured before it gets too cold here because it does snow where I'm at. So but yeah, all right, that is it for me. And before I forget, holy shit. I cannot believe I forgot this. We have a very special guest coming up on Monday. For those of you who are on the West Coast in California, there's a recall election coming up on Tuesday. Governor Newsom is under the threat of a recall. So this is really interesting for electoral politics. Not only do you have a ballot of do you want to recall the governor, but on that same ballot, if you vote to recall the governor, now you pick a new governor. And the gentleman who is running as governor for the Green Party will be on our show on Monday. So for me, this is a fascinating look at how elections work differently in different states. And then also something interesting and predictable is happening in California. Mainstream media is putting up all of the Republican candidates, and I think there are 10 of them, who are running against Newsom, but are totally ignoring the Green Party candidate. Shocker. So we want to bring him on because he has some really interesting ideas about what can happen in California. And oh, by the way, he's running for governor should the recall actually go through. So he will be with us on Monday.
Very exciting.
And we're very, very thankful. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I'm really looking forward to asking him why Newsom passes out fracking permits like Tic Tacs.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, but he's the blue governor. Yeah, whatever. So, and then one more thing for me. If you are in New Mexico and you're planning to go to the state fair, come see me. I will be at the Green Party booth helping them get signatures to get on the ballot for all of their candidates. Why would I do this? Well, New Mexico has 6 parties here. And because we have 6 parties, it is my personal opinion, and I can show you all the details because there are 6 major parties here, major and minor parties. This is why New Mexico has enacted all of the progressive policies except for the 2 that we need at the federal level, and that's Medicare for All and federal jobs guarantee. We get to discuss policy here, not Team Jersey color. So I will be at the State Fair, Gate 8. Stop by, come see me, and maybe sign this petition. So thank you so much. Andy, we are way over time this morning, but any last thoughts for us?
I just wanted to say Dingo, it's pronounced Nancy Pegosi, just for future reference. Just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Very lively chat this morning, as always, with our extremely knowledgeable audience that we have with us. We thank you so much for that knowledge and for sharing, being a part of talking about the new technologies and telling us stuff, that we haven't known yet. And it's as much as a lesson, a teaching experience for you as it is for us. So we appreciate that. Quickly, we just wanted to let everybody know that the Fred Hampton Leftists, a group that we are part of course, Gary and I, are going to be doing a major general strike seminar, for lack of a better term, a three-day summit where we're going to have tons of guests within the, the activism, unionism spaces. It's going to be in November on I believe the 12th, 13th, 14th. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So put that on your calendars. That's on the activist side, a wonderful way to organize and to get from the experts, the people that think about this stuff daily, to better get the general public the idea of how we should move forward and how we need to force our politicians to do what we want them to do instead of what the oligarchs want. So again, please support Fred Hampton Leftists. We are getting very much closer to 10,000 subs on YouTube, which is very exciting, and a lot of great content coming out of all our fam on YouTube through Fred Hampton Leftists. This is really an awesome group to be a part of. So please sub and click the notification on our channels. And thank you so much for being here with us today. Couldn't have done it without you. Very much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy the weekend. And we will see you here bright and early on Monday morning. Take care.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone. We out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keeping it G.